Good morning, everyone. Good morning. That wakes you up. It's loud enough. We're going to get started. Our high school kids aren't here yet, but they're on their way. So we might have a few changes here in the program, but just bear with us. We're going to get it all done here today. And I truly appreciate everybody being here. We're here to celebrate veterans, and we appreciate everything you've done for us.
Amen.
So we're going to go with the posting the colors, and we'll just continue on with the program.
Ma'am, permission to post colors.
Permission granted.
Color guard, post the colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in it, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
I learned it from him. No, you didn't.
I'm just looking around to see if our school kids are here yet. Let's go with the invocation by Deacon Lawson.
What a great God we serve. Lord, I thank you for this opportunity to be here this morning, Lord. I thank you for waking us up, Lord. I thank you again for traveling mercies, Lord. Bless the ones here, Lord. Bless the ones in this circle. Bless their loved ones, Lord. Lord, you bless us and we shall be blessed. I thank you for all good things, Lord, because all good things truly come from you. Lord, bless this dinner, Lord. Bless the food. Bless the hands prepared it, Lord. Bless us all as we leave here, Lord, as we get our traveling destinations, Lord. And we will thank you and give you all the praise, Lord, and all the honor and all the glory belong to you. In your holy and precious name, we all say, amen. Amen. Do I get a collection?
I love you. Good for you, Deacon.
I believe you may be seated now. Carol's going to do the table.
Good morning. Let me just give you a little bit of history this morning. The POWMIA issue did not really exist until after the Vietnam War. Not many people realized that after World War II, 79,000 still remained unaccounted for. After the Korean conflict, 7,800 never came home. 2,300 after Vietnam. When our Vietnam veterans came home, they were determined that those who remained unaccounted for, those still listed as POW, would not be forgotten. The black and white POW MIA flag did not exist until Vietnam, and the small tables set in every VFW, American Legion, and other military organizations were not in place until after the war. And so you may have noticed a small table set in a place of honor here today. The table is set for one. This table was our way of symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called POW MIA. We call them brother. They are unable to be with us this morning, and so we remember them this way. The table set for one is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his oppressors. Remember. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. Remember. The red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who keep the faith awaiting their return. Remember. The red ribbon tied so prominently on the vase is reminiscent of the red ribbons worn upon the lapel and breasts of thousands who bear witness to their unyielding determination to demand a proper accounting of the missing. Remember. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. Remember. There is salt upon the bread plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. Remember. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us this morning. Remember. The chair is empty. They are not here. Remember all ye who served with them and called them comrades, who depended upon their might and aid and relied upon them, for surely they have not forsaken you. Remember.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me as we honor all of you here today, men and women from the 104th District who chose to serve their country in military uniform. The act of donning the uniform is a deeply symbolic act, for it expresses a deep and selfless commitment to the idea we call America. Ordinary men and women have been defending this nation for more than 240 years, performing an extraordinary duty without regard for hardship or sacrifice. By understanding this duty to sacrifice for others they may have never known, or for those with whom they may not agree, our veterans have taken the idea of a free nation and turned it into a reality of a free nation. America's veterans have answered the call to duty, and that is why we honor their service on Veterans Day. That is why we should honor their service every day. Since 1919, when President Woodrow Wilson set aside the 11th day of November as Armistice Day, which was officially made a federal holiday in 1938, Americans in communities, large and small, have gathered just as we are doing today to honor our veterans. We gather in parks, we assemble in community halls, we kneel at grave sites, we march along parade routes, and we even get together in Civil War museums. We do these things as a way of thanking veterans for their service to our great nation. This event leads me to think of our rich heritage of men and women in uniform. Today's veterans are the custodians of tradition. They are the continuity between the generations. Many have made it their duty to support those now in uniform. They know what it means to serve. They have been there. They know the misery of marching for hours through cold rain, and they know the joy of touching American soil again. They know what today's soldiers need so that they can do their duty. From one generation to the next, certain elements of war may change. Weapons come and go, uniforms change, organizations and policies are revised, but the noble spirit moving under an American uniform remains the same. It was this way 240 years ago. It will be this way for a century from now. Most veterans probably will tell you that serving their country was a privilege and that no thanks are necessary. But today we show our sincere gratitude for your service and sacrifice. In closing, I would like to quote this prayer for veterans. Proud of our nation, they answered her call, defending the freedom and safety of all. On land and on sea, or in jets high above, they went out of duty in honor and love. But however they served, Lord, wherever they went, please bless them and help them to know what it meant. And help us to thank them on Veterans Day, for we owe them far more than we ever could say. God bless you for serving when America needed you. You're a very special person, and you're appreciated more than you could ever know. Happy Veterans Day, and I want to thank you all. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker. It is my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Representative Frank Ryan of Lebanon County, serves with me in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives after he was elected last year. Frank Ryan is a certified public accountant and a graduate of Mount St. Mary's College in nearby Emmitsburg, Maryland. Frank graduated summa cum laude in 1973 and received his Master of Business Administration from the University of Maryland in 1977. He is also a retired Marine Reserve Colonel. Frank was recently recalled to active duty in December 2004 and served with Multinational Force Iraq until June 2005. Prior to his initial retirement in 2002, Frank served as a Central Command Special Operations Officer during Operations Enduring Freedom. Frank's military service includes 3 Legions of Merit, the Bronze Star, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, the Navy Commendation Medal, and the U.S. Army Commendation Medal. Frank believes strongly in volunteerism and public service. Leading by example, he has served on numerous boards of directors of public and nonprofit charitable organizations. Frank's volunteerism isn't relegated to meeting rooms. He walked 2,806 miles across America in 2014 to raise awareness of the needs of children with emotional and behavioral issues and for children with developmental disabilities. Frank and his wife Sherry have 4 children and 7 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present Representative Frank Ryan. You're in for a treat.
Oh, thank you, sir. You're the best. Can everybody hear me if I stand in front of the podium? Is that okay? And does that screw anybody up in the back?
Camera won't pick you up. You're a colonel, you do whatever you want.
Well, did you hear that? He said you're a colonel and you can do whatever you want. That's not true in the Ryan household. I got back from Iraq in 2005, and my wife looked at me, and I wanted to, just kind of, I'd been in a combat zone. I'd seen some interesting things, and I was still feeling my oats, and I looked at her as soon as I got home, and I said to her, in the deepest voice I could, I said, "And what are you making for dinner?" And she turned to me with a cold-eyed, steely stare, and she said, "Reservation." And at that moment I knew I was home, I had lost the battle, and I was going to lose that battle forever. How many of the men in here are married know that you surrender the moment you get married? But that's right. That's where that military training comes in really, really well. And if your wife is here, you're a coward, you raise your hand only because she's here. We get that. No, it's my profound honor. Sue, thank you so much. Sue has been unbelievably helpful with me in the legislature as a freshman. But I've always been honored to be able to come and do as many of these events. I think this is the 4th one I've done with you. And well, it means a great deal to me. It really does. What I'd like to talk to you about, if you don't mind, is what this day really signifies for a nation that should be eternally grateful for what you did and for what your families allowed you to do. You know, it's interesting, tomorrow we're having an event about a welcome home parade, a welcome home event for Vietnam veterans. And I want to just give you a couple different tidbits of my career which led to this, and why I was so honored that Representative Helm would allow me to do this for her. I was not in Vietnam, but I was in Thailand and in Okinawa during the evacuation of Saigon. And when I came back, I was on an aircraft. It was the rotator, which is, anybody in the military is familiar with that. It's the aircraft we all get on. We're coming back, and we're going into San Bernardino, which at that time was a military air base. And then they would send us from San Bernardino to Los Angeles Airport or to our families. So we were about 35 minutes out of San Bernardino when the pilot got on, and he said, we were all in uniform. He said, when you land, you will change clothes. They'll have an area where you can change clothes. You are not to go out in public in your uniform. You will not be welcome. Now, I had not been in combat at that moment in my career, but I had a chance to see the effect on those people who had been. And I thought, this is just wrong. And it's immoral that a nation would send somebody into a combat zone. They would lose people. And in the last operation, the Koh Tang incident, there were a number of service members that were killed, and their families were in the process of being notified. A number of years later, I was a commanding officer, and I got a call. It was actually this day, back in the 1990s, advising me that we had someone who died over in far off shores. So myself and my sergeant major, we were already in our dress blue uniform. We were getting ready to do the Marine Corps birthday ball. We turned that over to someone else. We went up to notify the family. And we were told, it's called the Record of Emergency Data, that he was married with no children. Well, it was out of date. He was can never get through this. He had 3 children. The youngest was 2 years old. The 3-year-old came running around the corner because we were dressed full uniform and said, Mommy, it was right before Thanksgiving, Mommy, Daddy's home early. Wow. She came around the corner excited, saw me and the sergeant major, and immediately knew what happened. She collapsed. This isn't supposed to happen this many years later. She collapsed, and then you had a chance to be with that family. It was probably the worst day of their life and the greatest honor of mine to be with the family, to comfort them in that moment. You'll see that ceremony here shortly. I got called active duty and went to Iraq. I was in Afghanistan as well. And I came back, and when I did, I was in a type of unit where you didn't wear military uniforms. It was a group, and if you read the bio, you can read into that whatever you want. I was with one of the Special Forces groups. So we came back, and we weren't expecting anyone to recognize, but we came back on the rotator, and I saw all the Vietnam veterans standing there welcoming these youngsters home. And I thought, wow, I would have been bitter after what I had seen earlier. And these guys, once I talked to them, and they didn't know I was in the military. They saw I didn't have short hair because of the type of operations we were on. And I was asking him, I said, why are you doing this? And he said, I remember what it was like when I got back. Same thing happened to a lot of the Korean veterans, the forgotten war. In World War II, everybody served, and so it was an event, but not event. So, it was never really that understanding. And I got at that moment, I'm going to make a difference if I ever get a chance. And Representative Helm gave me that opportunity every time we could do it. But at the same time, I got called out of retirement. By the way, you're listening to a speech from somebody who failed retirement. So I would take what I say with a grain of salt, if you could. When I got called up to go out of retirement to go to Iraq, I got awarded a 3rd National Defense Service Medal. Now, that's an extraordinarily high decoration. That's what you get for breathing for 30 days straight, right? You remember that? If you can breathe for 30 days straight, you get one of those things. So the other day I was doing a veterans event, and somebody says, you have 3 of those. I said, I do. Civil War, World War II, World War I, and World War II. And the kid with that back, I goes, oh, okay, wow, that was like, what was it like in the Civil War? And my wife looked at me and she said, you deserve that. And I said, okay, well, I guess I did, right? And so it was one of those things. But anyway, so what happened was we're doing the events and I see this great thing. But when I was over in Iraq, we had the combat support hospital. We were having a significant problem with improvised explosive devices. And they were, what that would be is you're walking along, you're driving along, and all of a sudden it detonates and it destroys your vehicle. So, you know, we took a number of casualties, and so as we got there, I was always going to the combat support hospital. We called them a cache. And I saw this 25-year-old nurse there, and it dawned on me after about 2 months, what I was seeing once a month, she was seeing every single day. And I saw this 25-year-old girl age, like you can't imagine, in 6 months. And I got a new appreciation for the women who, anyone here is a woman who served in the military? God bless you guys. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Combat Support Hospital here. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you very, very much. And how about a round of applause for the young ladies? And so I saw this look, and at the end of 6 months, she had gone from a 25-year-old to a 50-year-old. Her face was sunken in, and she looked at me and she said, how do I explain this to my daughter when I get home? And we talked, I mean, each night we'd go over, because we were starting at that point to take a lot more casualties from IEDs. And I pretty much saw her every day. And so she just said, this is going to take me a while to get over this. And I said, you got a whole group of us, forever. My great friends from, I think it was our 20th event together, right? One of these days you're going to let me join the unit, but that's another matter. I keep putting in an application, they keep turning me down. Right? And I thank you very much. You made the comment the other day, no sir, we have standards. So I appreciate that. I'm elderly, come on, cut me some slack. But what happens is, as you look at that, you saw the tremendous respect that every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine had for that young lady. And we just decided to make a real difference. I remember one incident where we had a pretty significantly, horribly burned Iraqi girl, 14 years old. And we were supposed to discharge the Iraqis from the combat support hospital as soon as they were not in danger of dying. So one of the docs there and this nurse said that she was not stable yet, even though she was able to get on her own, but she had to go through deferment on a daily basis, which is an extraordinarily painful thing. And so I said to her, I got to know her really well, and I looked at her and I said, is there anything you'd like? And there was a male nurse there. And so she said, I'd like to see him put makeup on. I said, I think I can order that. Right? And so he's sitting there and he said, sir, you can't do that. I said, you want to bet? I said, I think I can. So I asked all the other nurses, what do you think? They said, yeah, let's do it. And so he said, this guy's, by the way, a big burly guy, obviously a weightlifter, really, by the way, really good guy. So we're putting all the makeup on. She said, I think you need a little more rouge on. I said, I do too. Then she looked at me, she says, I think you look good in makeup. And I said, okay, now wait a minute. Right? So if that picture ever surfaces, I want to explain the details first. But that's what happens in the military, is that we recognize the tough times, the humor, and you can only get through this by laughing, can't you? You know, if you don't keep your sense of humor, this one Marine one time, he was saying we had been getting mortared, and it was the first time he had been mortared, and he said, I said, you're really nervous. He said, yes, sir. He said, aren't you? And I said, anybody who's not nervous getting mortared, get as far away from as you can because they have a death wish. I said, I'm going to go back and change my clothes right after this is over. I said, but if you panic right now, you'll get hurt, right? So about an hour later, he's standing outside. We were in a bomb shelter. He's standing outside, he's smoking a cigarette, and I saw him. I'm heading back out into the red zone. And he's smoking a cigarette, and I said, son, do you know how bad cigarettes are for you? And he said, is it any better than being in Baghdad? I said, can I have a cigarette? I said, out of the mouth of babes, he convinced me, what am I thinking of? Who knew, right? But as you look at this, then I saw what happened when the Vietnam veterans took such great care of my returning servicemen and women. You gave us a tremendous honor that I saw their face light up to know that people cared. You hugged them, you embraced them, you told them that it meant something for them. Because the worst thing that can ever happen is you go through this and you think that somebody didn't care that you were doing it. I had a youngster make a comment to me the other day. He said, I don't support the war, but I support the soldier. And I said, you know what? That's probably one of the worst things you could say to somebody that you just send into combat. And she says, what do you mean? I said, this person's ready to die for something you don't believe in, and you put him there. And she didn't cry, but she got very upset. She said, I was trying to be nice. I said, I know you are, that's why I wanted to explain it to you. When these people have left home, because when you go overseas and you see this, one, you don't know who's coming back, either from an accident or combat. You don't know what's going to happen. But you are changed, no matter what happens. And when you get back, you realize, because we start telling each other about a month before, how many of you had a countdown calendar? How many of you got a countdown calendar the day you went in country? Right? Well, let me tell you what we had to do. We had to stop telling people when they were leaving because they got careless in their last week. And we found that the vast majority of casualties happened in the first couple of weeks and the last 2 weeks. And it's one of those things that you have to be aware of. So I said to this youngster, I said, please, whatever you do, you're almost better just saying thank you and don't say anything else. Don't say you don't support the war. Don't send somebody in that position, because when they're over there, we know when we get back, our families went on without us. They have to. How many of you are spouses of people who served in the military? You guys, the unsung heroes against please. A round of applause. We knew, right? We knew if we were safe. We knew if we weren't. You wondered all the time, is somebody going to come to the door? Am I correct? And it's a horrible feeling. And you think you get the support in the civilian community. So if there's any one takeaway today I would encourage you to do is to help the families of those service members who are deployed, because they really need that know that we care. We're still taking casualties in Iraq and Afghanistan. My son is forward deployed today. I mean, he left 2 days ago for his 8th or 9th deployment. And so when you look at those issues, now his deployments, by the way, are not 6 or 12-month deployments. They're shorter duration. He goes in for a specific issue. But I would tell you that you're seeing that with our current forces. We're stretched way too thin. So this day, I would encourage you to just remember it's about you. Let us thank you as you have thanked so many of my Marine soldiers, sailors, and airmen who came back. And I'm deeply indebted for all of you World War II, Korea, Cold War, Vietnam veterans, and Gulf War veterans, for what you did to make it easier for those soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and a lot of men and women that came back. I have one final comment to make, and hopefully you'll get a kick out of this. I was going through the cache. There was a young woman who was wounded. We're getting a lot of women wounded. A lot of casualties are women. And so I said, can I do anything for you? She said, sir, I don't know how to ask you this, but the entire supply chain has only male clothing. So when you go into a combat support hospital, they cut your clothes off. They need to treat you. So she said, if we could get undergarments, women's undergarments, we would appreciate that. So I'm thinking, how do I write this to my wife? So I said, honey, I need the following type of underwear. And I sent to some other friends and bras, and I had various different sizes that this woman gave to me. So about 4 years after I got back, I was officiating at a funeral of a friend of mine who was a former Marine. And I was reminded of something he did to me. I got an email back from one person who said, you need to see what this is. He said, I don't know why Frank needs all these ladies' undergarments. The pressure must be getting to him, but let's send it to him. This guy sent me a size 42 thong. That's the kind of sense of humor you have to have in this class. But as you look at this today, ladies and gentlemen, I would just encourage you First of all, thank you for letting me be here. I would tell you profoundly from the bottom of Representative Helm's heart, my heart, the entire Pennsylvania legislature, we are incredibly indebted as a nation to what each and every one of you have done. God bless you. Sue, thank you again for letting me be here. God bless you all.
Thank you, Representative Colonel Ryan. It takes someone who's been there to really tell the story. I can talk about it, but I love when I hear his stories, and all of you, when you tell me, what you actually did. It's really wonderful to hear, and I thank you. We're going to, like I said, we're going to improvise a little bit on the program. We're going to have the Susquehanna Township High School Saxophone Quartet. So you can just start with America Beautiful and then just go on, and when they're finished, then we'll have lunch.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I was trying to get
I can do whatever you want. Okay, you two? All right.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet who stern in passion stress, a thoroughfare of freedom beat across the wilderness. America, America, God meant thy every flaw, and gird thy soul in self-control, thy liberty and law.
We're going to perform at this time a thing we call a Veteran Salute. It includes all of the branches. And if you hear your branch, you would like to stand, and we would like to honor you for your service for us. So when you hear your branch's melody being played, please stand so that we can recognize you for your service.
Thank you very much. Frank and I are gonna hand out pins, and then they're gonna direct you to go to the food line. Just like to thank everyone who participated with the program today. I also have a citation here. We were supposed to have a 101-year-old veteran here today that I wanted to give a special honor to. Unfortunately, he's in the hospital, so hopefully he gets back out, and if not, I'll take it to the hospital here and give it to him, but I'm sure it'll be okay, but unfortunately today he couldn't be here. But I am going to read this because we will deliver it to him. It says, whereas the House of Representatives of Pennsylvania is always pleased to celebrate those individuals who, through service to our country, have upheld the principles and traditions set forth by the forefathers of this great nation. And whereas Richard E. Sheasley is being honored by Representative Sue Helm during a Veterans Appreciation Luncheon, which is being held on November 9th, 2017. And whereas, born on June the 27th, 1916, Mr. Sheasley served this country with honor and distinction as a member of the United States Army during World War II, a member of the 28th Mechanized Reconnaissance Troop, 28th Infantry Division. He participated in the Battle of Normandy, the Battle of Hirschkin Forest, and the Battle of the Bulge. Mr. Sheasley became a prisoner of war in Eschweiler, Luxembourg on December 18, 1944, and he was liberated by the Russian Army on May 9, 1945. He achieved the rank of Staff Sergeant during the distinguished military career, and he received an honorable discharge on September 21, 1945. Having served with distinction throughout his military career, Mr. Sheasley wore his uniform proudly. He brought proficiency and expertise to his challenging assignments, and his conduct, performance, and devotion to duty reflected his allegiance to the highest standards of military service. Now therefore, the House of Representatives of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania pays tribute to Richard E. Sheasley upon his richly deserved recognition, expresses deep appreciation and respect for a job well done, offers special wishes for every future success and happiness. So I will absolutely see that he gets this. We'll probably take a video, so let's applaud for him. Now you're going to hear from Austin White again.
I just wanted to take a moment and thank you all for your service. It allows me to do what I do and enjoy the freedom that I do. So thank you very much.
While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair, as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the nights with the lights from above, through the mountains and the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
And now we have the Field Cross ceremony and taps by the 1st Air Cavalry Field Cross Detail.
Once again, we are gathered to remember and thank our veterans. And again, we are here because of the loyalty to and the support of our veterans by Representative Sue Helm. So that's all, again, big round of applause for Sue. We are the 1st Air Cavalry Division Field Cross Detail. We perform our Field Cross ceremony as a reminder that we must remember and thank our veterans. We must remember those currently serving, and of course, we must remember and honor those who have given the ultimate sacrifice while protecting, defending, and preserving our freedom. For those who are not familiar, a little reminder, a little history again. The Field Cross was first used in World War I to mark the place where a fallen comrade was buried after a battle or skirmish. This made it easier to return and retrieve the remains for a proper burial at a later date. It was used again extensively in World War II and has been used continuously since then by our military in solemn memorial services to show respect and to honor their fallen brothers and sisters. We who are placing the items symbolizing a fallen comrade are all members of the Michael J. Novosel Medal of Honor, Capital Area Chapter 542 Vietnam Veterans of America, and/or the Sergeant First Class Randall Shugart Special Forces Memorial Chapter 64. Our flag will be laid in a place of honor by Seaman Steve Siders. And I just wanted to say a little bit about when Steve stops in front of the Field Cross and bows his head, that we call that the Frank Ryan maneuver, because Frank Ryan participated in our Field Cross ceremony, and he started that particular move. So that's what we call it. Representative Helm will place a rose for all who have suffered the loss of a loved one while serving the armed forces of our United States. Taps will be sounded by Eric Hartfremth, Director of Bands. Let us remember from John 15:13, greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for another. God bless America. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are seated and are able, please rise.
Freeze! Line! Follow! Order! Who? Detail, right, please. Forward, who?
We'll have the retirement of the colors and then the benediction. And please, on the way out, please pick up your certificate. And you may also go through the Civil War Museum for free today, so take advantage of that.
Ma'am, permission to retrieve the colors.
Permission granted.
Color guard, retrieve the colors.
And the benediction by Reverend Allen.
To all and for all who are gathered here today under the canopy of heaven, God Almighty, we thank you for our lives, for our health, for our strength, but for the fellowship that we share when we were armed and now disarmed. We're thankful, Heavenly Father, because you've been good to us, and we ought to respect and be good to one another. Thank you for the fellowship today, for all the hearts, souls, and minds that are represented here today, for those organizations who have supported this great fellowship today in honor of our veterans. Many gone, but not forgotten. God bless us all. Amen.
Thank you, everyone. Legislative, if there's anything you need, call our office. We're always there for you.